Okay, and we are live, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back
Somebody
to.
has the TV going.
Yeah, that's YR there. I think he may be watching some game, I guess. I don't know what it is, but either way, Music Maniacs is happening now, ladies and gentlemen. Me, Arknolia Strokerbeen, and the great YR tonight. No
Who's
Kiefer.
got who's
What?
got the beef? Who's got the beef or chicken, Dr. Brown? Remember the 80s line, who's got the beef?
Oh, you mean, where's the
What
beef?
is it? Where's the beef? Yeah.
Yeah, that was Clara Peller from the Wendy's commercial, I think it was. Yeah, that's a big bun. Yeah, that's such a big bun. Open lift the top bun off. Where's the beef? And that became one of the biggest catchphrases throughout the 80s there until she did a commercial for some Prego spaghetti sauce with a meat flavor, meat added to it there. And that's when she got fired from Wendy's for doing that there. And we never heard from her ever since. I think she may have passed on a couple years later after that. But that line, "Where's the beef," was probably the biggest catchphrase in the 80s there.
Well, thank you.
It was. It was.
Well,
Yep.
you need to dive into this Billy Squire thing.
Yeah. By the way,
Ark, did you listen to that song, Ark?
No.
yeah. Why are?
Earl, explain it. Explain the whole thing and
Yeah,
what it's about. To
Yeah, Billy Squire. Wire sent me a link to a song by Billy Squire that came out a couple days ago. It's called "Harder on a Woman." It's basically describing the hardships that women go through almost on a daily basis, including the reversal of Roe versus Wade that occurred many months back. And it's
not really
basically
for the. It's not for the
not for
Republic. It's not for the Republican
no,
music
not for the
fan.
conservative.
Yeah.
That's for sure. It's more liberal based, basically there.
But you can still tell it's him singing, right?
It
Like,
is absolutely. It's
I
no
mean, not
doubt.
much, not much of the rock guitar, not
Yeah,
much rock guitar, more horns.
it's a lot more
But
mellow.
yeah,
Yeah, it's a lot more basically. And I think this song just came out. I don't know what record label it's released on there, but I guess if it's to say that this new material in a long, long while there. I think the last I think the last record we ever
yes,
heard from him was, I guess, in 1993. I forgot it was some sort of a Creatures in its title there. I don't know what. But Billy Squire, he's releasing this new record, so lean towards the woke crowd there. And
hmm
what it is, it's basically a lot more mellow tuned than rather than his more riveting stuff like In the Dark, My Kind of Lover, The Stroke, you know, Signs of Life, or Rock Me Tonight. Those songs there from the 80s there. Definitely got to dig into him. And plus, other acts we got to dig into just as well there. Right? Now, I'm going to see if we could get Ken on the call there because a couple times that I mentioned that him and I had some conversations about the 80s, and he did say that the music and the movies in the 1980s were the best decade for both genres right there.
Hmm.
Yeah. Because a lot of interesting movies came out throughout the 1980s. Some that made it big, like some have become cult classics, like the let's say some not so called classics, but they are remembered for a lot of things, like the first RoboCop with Peter Weller there. And of course, we cannot forget the Terminator, which came out in 1984 and was helped spawn all these cyborg movies that came out afterwards. And of course, now so far, do we have any other music news to talk about there? Let me see if I can go on to let's see, blah blah blah, blabbermouth.com here or blabbermouth.net. Let me get that up. See if we can have any talk about here. Let's see what we got here. Okay, let's see what we got here. Now, This is from metalsucks.net, and it's the article Motley Crue to torture everyone for the next 7 years if Nikki Sixx has his own way there. Now, for a while now, we've been having a lot of fun at Vince Neil's expense in terms of his messed up vocals and his weight gain a couple years back before they did the stadium tour with Poison the Def Leppard. Neil's recent vocal performances while touring with Motley Crue have been prompted fans online to make comments like, "He sounds like an old Cartman. What happened?" Now, this is from earlier yesterday on the website that I'm reading, Metal Sucks. Well, it turns out the world's going to be subjected to more mumbled vocals and pre-recorded drum tracks for almost a decade. You okay there, Ark?
Sorry.
Gesundheit.
That was kind of unexpected.
Right there. That's understandable. Now, according to the band's bass player, Nikki Sixx, while speaking on Brasilia radio station, I forgot the name, it doesn't have the list of call letters there, but it's called A Radio Rock last year, described by Blabbermouth. Nick said that he estimates that the band could keep going until at least 2031. Now, he said, quote, "We just did those 4 songs for the Dirt soundtrack. We pretty much locked everything down. We're having conversations beyond 2023. So what's 24 look like for us in a touring capacity? As far as new music, I think new music always comes when a band is getting along. We get along so great now. We've been having the best time. We spend time together and we go out on dinner." Tommy had just had his 60th birthday party last October down in Mexico. He invited a small group of his very good friends, and I was there. A bunch of cool Tommy's friends were there as well there. All of our wives were there. John 5 came in, and it was just cool to be able to not talk business, but be in rehearsal or get on the phone, talk about the photo shoot or the video. We were just hanging out, walking on the beach, and we had some great conversations. Me, Tommy, Vince had this conversation. I said, "What are you guys doing for the next 8 years?" And everybody's laughing and saying, "I don't know." And I said, "Why don't we just keep going? Let's just take it up to 50 years.
Dr. Brown, did you get those Skinny Puppy tickets yet?
Not yet. Not yet there. But I plan on doing it probably this weekend there. We've been so busy doing a lot of cleaning at the house there, and me taking care of stuff outside of the house there. So he concludes by saying, "This isn't a final tour. What does that look like? I have no idea. I'm just telling you, you had the band saying, 'We're having a blast. Why stop?'" Now, while the interview took place this past December, the video was recently posted on YouTube, which explains why we've been living blissful ignorance for the past few months. Could you imagine the damage a Motley Crue with members firmly in their 70s would do? Well, Mick Mars is in his 70s there. Dogs everywhere would be concerned over Vince Neil starts yowling into the mic. John 5, the youngest of the current lineup, is almost 60 years old there. Wow. He would be sticking around as check clears. Tommy Lee would still be finding new horrific ways to subject the world to images of his old wrinkled sack.
His wiener.
I know, for almost 70 years there.
Penis. Penis,
I know, exactly. I know what you're talking about there. Oh, gosh. So does this mean that Tommy Lee is the new John Holmes of rock and roll?
Yes.
And if anybody who knows who doesn't know who John Holmes is, well, definitely look up on Wikipedia. I'll tell you right there. Remember that they signed that contract in blood saying they'll never tour again? Yeah, those were the days. They could have ridden off into the sunset free to pursue their own solo careers if they wanted, but instead they had to form a sad, old, disappointing Voltron every night on stage. And this is the writer of the article, not me speaking, folks. And it looks like it could be probably happen for the foreseeable future there. Now, like I said, now obviously the guy who wrote this is kind of concerned at the fact that the crew members are in their 60s, 70s, such and such there. But then again, that really that cannot be helped. You know, everybody grows old, their body form starts to change, whether they like it or not. Blah blah blah. But you know what? You know, it is what it is. You know, at least Nikki Sixx is not going bald on top. I mean, I've seen many musicians who have to wear hats on their heads at all times because they realize they're losing their hair. For example, two members of the Scorpions, guitarist Matthias Jabs and singer Klaus Meany. They're constantly wearing hats, as you know. Why? Because they're losing their hair on top. And that's kind of an embarrassing thing for them to go through there. I mean, for rock and roll, long hair especially, definitely a need there. Unless you're one of them short-haired rockers. Never mind there. Anything you want to add, YR there?
No.
No? That's about it? All right. That's pretty much about it so far. So we could possibly see the Mighty Crew go on till about 2031, basically. About
Would you
10.
be interested in seeing them with John Fire?
It'll be
If they
interesting.
came to like, you go ahead.
It'll be interesting. You know, it would be interesting because, you know, I remember I stated many times in the show that I remember John Five, then John Lowry, his real name, back when he was playing with the band Pepperland at the Ritz in Roseville, New York, New York, Harpo's Concert Theater many times before he moved out to California and carved a name for himself years later, playing with everybody, including Rob Zombie, Marilyn Manson, Rob Halford, everybody under the sun there. And basically, I remember we met one time back during the Ritz and Roseville days there. So it's interesting, you know. But you know what? It's interesting to see how John Five is as a guitar player because, never mind. But you know what? He is. I gotta say, I'd like to check it out sometime. You know.
Thank you.
Yeah. But
Appreciate that, man.
now, by the way, I want to say this. You know, credit to Mick Mars, as always, for still being able to play guitar despite the painful condition that he has had for God knows how long. I cannot pronounce the name. You know, I'm not good at pronouncing medical terms, but despite him being in pain with his spine fusing and all that, he's still able to get out there and play guitar like nobody's business, you know. And it's sad he was not able to tour with the crew this time because of this condition, but hey, what can you do, you know? There comes a time where you gotta say, whoa, I gotta chill out here, man. And that is what Mr. Mars has done many months back when he made the announcement. Now, the thing I like to see is, will Motley Crue release a new album? The last record they put out was The Saints of Los Angeles, and that was in the early 2000s. You know what? All right. All right, there. All right, so that's pretty much my take on the whole thing on the Crue situation there. Well, not really the situation, just most likely they'll be carrying on for the next upteen years there. All right. Okay, so are we ready to continue our list of the 80s artists out there?
I was going to touch on some 80s films because I found a list of those.
Yeah, definitely got to talk because, definitely got to mention those because 80s Hank came out with some interesting movies. Yep.
Okay, first one I've got listed is 1980's 9 to 5.
Mm-hmm.
Private Benjamin,
Mm-hmm.
Airplane, which was a thoroughly enjoyable movie. I love that one.
So did I, man.
Caddyshack,
Mm-hmm. With Rodney
Melvin and Howard,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
History of the World Part 1, Mel Brooks.
Yeah. By the way, there's History
The
of the World.
Blues Brothers.
Oh, yeah, that was a big hit. By the way, I don't know if you know this, but Mel Brooks has put out History of the World Part 2.
I haven't seen that one, I don't think.
Mm.
I have seen Part 1.
All right.
1981, you had Stripes.
Uh-huh.
1982, Airplane 2, the sequel.
Mm-hmm.
Porky's.
Oh, yeah, that was a big one. That was a big movie there.
1983,
Mm-hmm.
Strange Brew. The
Mackenzie Brothers, Rick Moranis
Right.
and Dave Thomas.
1984, Ghostbusters. Repo Man.
Mm-hmm.
Splash. This is Spinal Tap.
Oh, one of our favorites. Me and my ma saw that there, and she said that isn't that story based on the Beatles there, because there was a moment there where one of the guitar player's girlfriend ended up being the manager for the group for the time being after their manager decided to walk away, and that they were in the rut. They decided to get their manager back, and of course the new drummer, because the last one exploded on stage for some oddball reason.
Yeah, they were pretty hard on drummers.
Yeah, no.
They kept it, something happened to them each time.
Yeah, it was absolutely there.
And then Top Secret.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Another Abram Zucker.
That's when we
What was
first.
that?
I know, it's probably YR. And that's, by the way, when we first heard of Val Kilmer, the actor there. Keep that in mind.
1985.
1984,
Back
the movie.
to
I was going to say the movie 1984 came out that same year, based on the George Orwell song, on the George Orwell book, I meant to say. And here's a story about one of the songs from the soundtrack, which was done by the Eurythmics. There was a song called Sex Crime included on the soundtrack album, and radio stations refused to play it because they thought it was about sexual assault.
Well, we don't need to
rape.
be bringing that up on the show. Come on,
But then again, this is
well, we don't need to. That subject matter is inappropriate. Mark,
Oh, man.
do you agree?
Continuing on,
Yes.
1985, Back to the Future, The Goonies, Lost in America,
Never
Once
seen
Bitten.
that movie. I've never seen any of the nostalgic 80s movies. Goonies. I mean, Terminator, of course. But the Goonies, like the goofy ones, I never seen. The Back to the Futures, never seen it. Goonies, never seen. I mean, I've flipped around and saw, like, I know about, like, the messed up guy's face. Like, it looks like a mashed potato face or something. Melting potato face or something.
Mask.
In the Goonies.
Oh,
Isn't there
yeah.
like a
I don't
some
know.
monster?
Man.
The
I guess his name was Sloth, I guess.
Sloth, yeah.
Yeah.
And what are the other movies, Dr. Brown, in the 80s that were
Well, there was...
obviously
Summer
Scarface?
Rental.
Never seen Summer Rental. What's your favorite movie of the 80s, Keith? I mean, Dr. Brown.
I was going to say, like, well, I enjoyed the movie Some Kind of Wonderful. It was kind of a cool movie there, because I also enjoyed this one small movie called Satisfaction with Justine Bateman and Julia Roberts in it there. And, of course, you cannot forget both Star Wars Episode 5 and 6.
Yeah.
Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back.
You were
and
big into
Return
Star
to-
Wars, Brown? Back
Oh,
then?
I was
You had
always
the-
big. I was big into them since '77 when New Hope first came out in that year. Back then, it was just called Star Wars. Then they decided to retitle it A New Hope Episode 4. Years on down the line.
Also, Pee-wee's Big Adventure, Weird Science, 1986, Down and Out in Beverly Hills, Little Shop of Horrors, Ruthless People, I'm basically reading comedies right now. 1987. Hunk.
Yep.
I'm not familiar with that one.
The what?
Balls.
Spaceballs, a Star Wars
And
parody from Mel Brooks.
1988. Beetlejuice.
With Tim Burton directing. I believe it was his
Yeah.
second film there.
And then 1989. Back to the Future Part 2. And Ghostbusters 2.
Yep. And let's not forget.
And those were the comedy films of the 80s. They're not bad.
And let's not forget the movie Batman featuring Michael
I mean,
Keaton.
I feel like, and this isn't any. I mean, there's a ton of great movies throughout the years since, obviously since like great movies like Wizard of Oz and everything. But I think there's more of the action-packed movies in maybe say early '90s.
Yeah.
Your 89, 90, 90 with what's that one? Pulp Fiction. What year did Pulp Fiction come out?
It came out in 1994 there.
Yeah, so see, like big, huge movies like that were coming out in like the '90s that were really good. Like obviously your comedies, Dumb and Dumber.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? The Mask, like Jim Carrey's whole thing. When did Forrest Gump come out? What year?
I think it may have been 1995, if I'm correct.
There you go, another '90s movie that's super epic. Titanic. Like these huge movies came out like in the '90s. I mean, I know we're talking about the '80s, but I'm just saying, like, when you think of the '80s, I feel like it's a little bit more cheesier movie-wise.
Well,
I mean, obviously you have like Terminator and like other big ones and like all these great actors coming up and everything, but more music is better in the '80s than the '90s for sure.
Well, keep in mind that the reason it was kind of cheesy in the 80s because that was how it was in the mainstream of society there, bands like they were listening, people, the mainstream society were listening to stuff that was current, whether it's Taylor Dane or basically whether it's stuff like on the circuit at that time, whether it's the theme of Miami Vice, the top 40 stuff there, Miami Sound Machine, or like I said, Taylor Dane, or some freestyle music from Miami or something like that there. That was basically we're talking the followers of what was trending at that time, And of course, followers have been known to be cheesy in their vocabulary as well as their taste in movies and music and fashion and everything else there.
And speaking of cheesy, Xanadu came out in 1980.
Yeah, we talked about that one. That was one of Olivia Newton-John's biggest bombs in the box office there. But yet, the soundtrack for that movie went all over the charts, all over.
Best.
Yeah, exactly. Magic, Suddenly, the song she did with the Tubes called "Dancing." All over the world, featuring ELO. Yeah. It was a joint album between her and the Electric Light Orchestra. Side one was her material. Side two was
Inside.
Yeah.
God.
Was the Electric Light Orchestra, and they did the song Xanadu together there. That was another big hit.
Some better movies that period of time.
Mm-hmm.
Clash of the Titans. Dragon Slayer. Yeah. Excalibur, which was a good movie.
Yes, absolutely. That's where we got to. That's where we. Sorry, let me say this. That's where we got to introduce to Liam Neeson. By the way.
Right. Dr. Brown. He became more famous later, but in the '80s, Dr. Brown. It's a question for both of y'all.
Yeah.
Completely fucking forgot. See, you should let me go on. It was really important, too.
All right. Okay, so in the 80s, go ahead, dude.
No, I forgot that.
A few more movies.
All right.
Oh, movies. Okay, movies. Brown, Indiana Jones series. When did that come out in the 80s?
Yes, it came out in 1982. It started with
Oh
Raiders and the
yes,
Lost Ark. It was directed by Steven Spielberg. I guess the producer or executive producer was George Lucas, and of course,
yes.
started Harrison Ford in the main character, Indiana Jones.
Thank you.
Hmm.
Time Bandits,
Yep.
Mm.
The Beastmaster,
Oh yeah, with Mark Singer in the title role there,
Conan the Barbarian,
with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
The Dark Crystal,
A Muppets movie there with Jim Henson, rest in peace.
The Last Unicorn, The Secret of Nim, The Sword and the Sorcerer. A lot of fantasy films.
Yeah. Labyrinth with David Bowie as Jennifer Connelly.
Deathstalker, The Dead Zone,
Mm.
It's based on the Stephen King.
Hercules.
Oh, can I say that the 80s was the most decade that we would see the most Stephen King movies translated into film. Cujo, yeah, the one that Ark just mentioned, whole bunch of them.
Mary Poppins? I thought that came out before now.
I think so.
Hmm.
Probably a reissue of that
It
movie.
must
I'm
be a
thinking.
remake of some sort.
Probably a reissue of that movie. I'm thinking.
Thor the Conqueror.
Oh my
What
God.
was the number one soda? Was it Coca-Cola or was it Pepsi in the 80s?
Oh, I didn't pay
I
it.
think it's Coca-Cola, but I don't know
Popular.
that for sure.
What about North Brown?
I know.
What
I
was
just drank them all. It didn't really matter to me. But the commercials for both companies were a lot often cheesy as well. Let's also not forget the 80s was when many artists, sold.
Oh,
You okay?
fuck!
You okay?
No, I was watching. Sorry.
Okay. I was going to say that many artists around that time, were allowing beer companies to use ports of their music into their commercials there. Like, I know Phil Collins got a lot of flack for allowing his song In the Air Tonight to be used, even though that song was about his divorce. And of course, Steve Winwood allowed one of his new songs at that time, Don't You Know What the Night Can Do, for a Michelob commercial there. Eric Clapton did a new version of his song After Midnight for a beer commercial there. And the story, for what I heard, is that he later would go into rehab for his issue with alcohol. And you're sitting in there and you're watching the commercial you did for that beer company. And it's like, oh, God, that was so embarrassing. Can you imagine watching that while you're inside of a rehab center?
Gremlins,
Yes.
The Never-Ending Story.
That was a big one.
And here's one Dr. Earl and myself are familiar with at this point. Sheena.
Oh yeah, we did a special on that one in our movie memories series there, Sarah. It was this dialogue was cheesy as hell. Believe it or not, it could have been a lot more better. Now, it started the late Tanya Roberts, and you will admit she did look fine in the get up that she had during the production of that
Would
movie.
you want to do? Would you want to switch? Would y'all want to switch? Would y'all want to switch things around and obviously keep our music show, but like maybe Thursdays do like movie
Hmm.
talk and like either a topic would be dive into the works of Tom Hanks and discuss all the Tom Hanks movies. And there's so many topics like we do with the music, but that'd be cool because mix it up a little bit. Or, we don't have to do it, but we can't really add any extra days.
I'd be okay with it.
Okay, that sounds
Can't really
good.
add,
There.
you know how we can't really add any extra days because these are days off and stuff. So
Hmm.
that'd be fun. Just think about it. You know what I'm saying? Like Music Maniacs on Wednesdays, and then Movie Maniac or Movie whatever.
Movie Maniacs. I like that title right there. Definitely for sure. There. Or Movie
That'd be fun
Madness.
though, right?
Because remember,
That'd be
me and
fun.
Ark was doing Movie Madness on I guess
Yeah.
it was Friday nights. Where we were talking about all the movies that were good, bad, ugly, and cheesy, dim-witted. One of those movies that and believe me, there's a few movies that we do want to talk about. That's for sure, man. Definitely.
Should we reopen Plan 9 from Outer Space?
Oh man, you gotta see that one. YR cheesy as damn hell,
If you've
but you know
not
what?
seen it,
No.
you got to see it.
You gotta
It's on
see it.
YouTube.
Be prepared. Be very prepared. Or better yet, there's a movie out there we got to talk about called The Crimson Ghost. And we all know what band took the image of the Crimson Ghost itself for their own logo.
Enlighten everybody.
The Misfits. Glenn Danzig's old band. The Crimson. Look up the Crimson. YR. Look up the Crimson. Yes. Yep.
Holy shit.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. That's the same.
Wow.
Yep. Mm-hmm. That was a film.
Big Trouble in Little China.
Mm-hmm. Ultimate guy movie. That's for damn sure, man. What did the best that John Carpenter ever did with Kurt Russell there?
Hey, Peggy Sue got married.
Wow.
Yep.
Batteries not included.
Oh yeah, that was one of those kind of I don't know if it was what kind of movie it was, but it involved the little miniature spaceships there that you're able to hold in the palm of your hand like toys.
Yeah. Harry and the Hendersons.
Oh yeah, featuring Bigfoot.
John Lithgow.
Oh yeah, respect to him as well.
Mannequin.
Featuring what's that guy's name? Andrew Edward. No, not him. I forgot his name for crying out loud. But he was always Andrew McCarthy.
Michael Gottlieb. Andrew, that's it. Yeah,
Yep,
Michael Gottlieb directed.
Mm-hmm.
Kim Cattrall.
Kim Cattrall was in
Was
that
also
movie.
in that.
Yep, and she would later, of course, join Sex and the City on HBO years later on.
The Princess Bride. That was actually a pretty good movie.
Yeah. And that would later become a cult classic. And, of course, it would feature, of course, the late Andre the Giant, as well as Billy Crystal.
Yep. The Witches of Eastwick.
Oh, yeah, with Jack Nicholson as Beelzebub himself there.
Yeah.
And also, there was another movie that came out that same, around 88, that really caused a lot of controversy. The Last Temptation
Rocky.
of Christ.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was a controversial movie.
Have you ever heard of a series called Rocky with Sylvester Stallone?
Oh,
Really? Yeah.
Who hasn't?
You think that one's more popular from the 80s when people think of the 80s than Terminator? If you had to pick one movie that's quintessential to that
Star Wars. I mean, there's so many movie series that are out there.
Yeah, you're right.
That's endless.
Yeah.
Whether it's the Underworld series, the Rocky series, the Carrie series, or the Star Wars series. Like the Exorcist series. Believe it or not, there was multiple other movies that followed the 1 to 2 there that were basically unknown to man. Let's not forget the Lost Boys movie series as well there. After the first one in 87, years later, there was a couple more.
Then there was Willow. Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
Oh, yeah. One of the first movies to mix animation and live action together there.
Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
And that's where we got to know Keanu Reeves. Mm-hmm. And, of course, Alex Winter, who also starred in The Lost Boys previously a couple years before.
But that was a lot of the movies we can touch on the movie show.
Yeah, so there, yes. So,
Back to the music list.
okay, there, gotcha. Mm-hmm.
The Fall.
Don't fall. Then the walls came down. That was a big song throughout the early 80s era. And if you remember the video for that song, which I remember saw many times before, Garth Hudson from the band is in that video just as well. Now, I don't know how that happened, but it was most interesting to see there. But because here's a band from the 60s and 70s performing with a new wave group in the 80s era. But then again, you could never tell.
Did the Foo Fighters come out in the 80s?
No, it came out in the 90s, 95, after Kurt
Yeah,
Cobain's suicide.
It's basically Nirvana without Kurt Cobain. Or no?
It's
Dave,
Dave,
it's
the
Dave
drummer
Grohl.
David Grohl.
How about the Fix?
Oh yeah, they were big. We know that big song from them. One thing leads to another. Other songs.
Red Skies at Night.
Mm-hmm. Great song from them. I remember.
Stand or Fall.
Yep, good one. That's the first time I heard of them. I remember seeing them live back in 1991 at the Ritz in Roseville. They had some of the concerts broadcasted on a local radio station. I was there to meet up with a girl that was singing at that time earlier that year. And one of the guys presumed that I was their guitar player at one point.
What?
Yeah, he did. You know, the guy, the hair I had.
The band?
Yeah.
In the band?
Yes, exactly. The guitar player's name was Jamie West Oram. And the guy thought I was the guitar player for some reason there because we kind of looked at similar at that time there. But his hair was a lot more darker than mine at that time there. Yeah, so, and the girl I was singing, she remembered meeting the drummer years ago when they went and saw them at some other Detroit venue. I guess it was around 84, 85 there when she was a wee teenager there. But give it up to the Fix. And I think they performed, I don't know what year it was. It may have been a couple of years back, but they did play the Do-Si-Do venue near Spring, Texas, back in Texas there a couple of years back. A friend of mine on Facebook got footage of that there.
Kate Bush, 80s?
Well, it's about like 70s and 80s, pretty much both decades there. And we know the song that became a big hit during the 80s there, Running Up That Hill. That was later featured again in the show Stranger Things, along with Master of Puppets, which also came out in the 80s.
Okay, Led Zeppelin do anything in the 80s? When did Bonham die?
He died in 1980 in the September of that year. They were about to do a U.S. tour in how many years there. And I guess the story was that he drank way too much the evening before, and that's when they tried to revive him, and apparently he was dead as a result of that. And the fact that people said, oh, they could have just continued, but here's the thing. Take a look at The Who. They got Kenny Jones to replace Keith Moon after his passing. Yeah, The Who continued on, released a couple records before their farewell tour in 1983. But, however, people were saying, their diehards were saying, it's not the really same without Keith because he was like an energy-driven madman behind the drums kid, whereas Kenny Jones was like, typical. And a lot of that magic, definitely would have happened to say. If Zeppelin were to continue with another drummer, that drummer would have had to go throughout the rest of his time with the group saying, he's a good-ass drummer, but he's no John Bonham, that's for sure there. Mm-hmm. And if I were to play drums for Zeppelin, I certainly would not want that on my shoulders. And when you think about it, when Zeppelin did reunite first for Live Aid in 1985, they had to have two drummers. That's how damn good John Bonham was for Shizzle.
Shizzle my nizzle.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
When did Lenny Kravitz come out?
I think Lenny Kravitz came out in '88.
88.
Yes, '88 with
Right.
Love Rule. I think that's the one
I
there.
will go my way.
Yeah, and
Can you play that on the guitar, guy?
you know what?
Lick.
I should probably try that
Very,
sometime.
very, 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 very iconic lick.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
very
on the
iconic song for
radio.
the
Oh
guy.
my god, that song was played on '90s radio every hour, on the hour. It never really gets old either.
I think Madness came out late 70s.
Madness. Well, Madness came out around the later part of the '70s, but they may have a few hits in the '80s there. That song "Our House" was a massive hit on the radio and MTV there, and people always go for that song, but they forget songs like Cardiac Arrest, but they forget about, of course, One Step Beyond, which was the first time I heard of them.
When did Michael Jackson die?
He died in 2009. And
Okay,
yes,
well, he was definitely around in the 80s.
He was all
Big.
over the place in the early 80s there. Thoreau was all over the joint. They spent how many months, how many weeks on the Billboard charts there? You know, I mean, God knows. It's like, and what's kind of funny is that I heard a rumor, many rumors, that his other brothers were jealous as hell of him for making it so big. They said that they were, oh, we're proud of him, we're happy for him, but me and my sister kind of disagreed on that one because we figured they must be jealous as hell. They must have been. You think they may have been jealous, Ark? YR?
No.
Nirvana.
No, well, Nirvana's first record came out in 1989. There, I think they have.
Mhm.
So they have. So I just guess it kind of counts for some of the 80s there, because a lot of the stuff in the 80s that went on in the earlier decade was kind of died out later on during that whole decade there.
And of course, Neil Young was doing stuff in the 80s.
Yeah, a lot of experimental stuff there. Remember the album Trans, which was
Oh, yeah, Sample and Hold.
and
Love that song.
And the vocoder that he was using on some of the tracks, like "We Are in Control." What is it called? Transformer Man, I think it's called. Yeah.
Yep, yep.
Computer
Yeah,
Age.
there's a concert that was on DVD. I assume it still is, called Live in Berlin, where he did most of that album with
Yep. Nils
believe
Lofgren.
Nils.
Lofgren, yes. I remember seeing it on HBO around that time when that record came out. And by the way, the version of Sample and Hold was most excellent in that concert there.
Yeah, Oasis was 90s, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Like I said, I'm reading a list.
Okay, there. Yeah. Wow.
Pearl Jam.
That was the 90s as well there.
Damn. When did those last two Pink Floyd albums come out?
Well, the last one came out called The Division Bell. That was in 1994, but Pink Floyd released it about 3 records. Collection of Great Dance Songs, which was a compilation, I guess, in 1981. They had the final cut, their final record with Roger Waters. Not a good record to listen to if you're getting ready to go down on a Saturday night and party down. Very depressing record there. And of course, Momentary Lapse of Reason. Great album from them, not featuring Roger Waters there. And it's like, many fans still have yet to really forgive Roger for taking the band to court, because they were going to go on as Pink Floyd without him, and yet Roger didn't want that happening. He felt like he was...
That's kind of ego.
Yeah, exactly.
That's kind of ego-centric.
It was. Exactly there. And Roger ended up having eat his own words, because the concert tour he did as a solo artist, along with the stuff he was saying in interviews, backfired on him, because many people chose to see Pink Floyd instead of him. So he ended up, being the loser in that battle there.
Then you had the Police from the 70s through the 80s.
Oh man, and credit to them, they were basically had one of the biggest albums of their career around '83 called Synchronicity. Every Breath You Take is still considered a classic, played on radio to this day. There, songs
Oh,
like
the Stalker song.
oh yeah, that's what it's about. We all thought it was about a love ballad, missing your lover, but it was actually about a stalker, for crying out loud.
Yeah, when you listen to the lyrics and put them in context, it's like,
Absolutely.
he's stalking her.
Exactly there. And what they had other great songs. One of my favorites from them is Walking on the Moon, as well as Tea in the Sahara. Wrapped Around Your Fingers, a good one there. Synchronicity 1 and 2.
Ghost in the Machine.
Yep, Invisible Sun, every little thing she does is magic. Spirits in Material World. And I had one of their albums from 1980 called Zenata Madonna. I remember that's how it's pronounced. They had songs like, let's see, Driven to Tears, do 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 do, da 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 da. And one interesting song from that record was the opening cut, Don't Stand So Close to Me, which was about a teacher-student relationship.
Yeah, this was a big era for hidden meanings in songs, too.
Absolutely there.
Pretenders, more the 70s, or did they do the 80s, too?
80s. They were definitely 80s. The first record came out in 1980. I had a copy of that. I remember listening to that while I was in one of the summer camps I was in upper Michigan there. This guy had some product by the Sex Pistols, as a snippet of radio interviews, audio bits and that. Interesting record to listen to there. He also had a band called the Urban Verbs, which I would later pick up on cassette a couple years later there. Good stuff there. Very underground. He had
REM.
REM.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's later on. That's later in the 80s there. But one band, he had a band.
Well, what I'm saying is they formed in 1980.
Yeah. Well, let me get this out of the way. There was another band in the 80s called XTC. Yeah, their one big song, since it's working overtime. The record this camp counselor had was called Drums and Wires. He played that a lot. He was big on the new wave scene. And of course, the one I just mentioned, the Pretenders' first record. I remembered that. I figured, I'm going to get that when I see it at the record store next time with my allowance money at that time, which I did. Good stuff on that record there.
Radio.
We do have a breaking news death.
Who?
Oh, no.
And
What?
this guy, very influential to Dr. Brown. You're not gonna have to grip a hold of something on this one. Are you ready?
Well, okay, who is it?
Better send it right now.
Okay.
Get the article.
Okay.
It's a big one, guys.
Okay. Okay, waiting for the article here. Should be coming in minutes. Go ahead, Ark, there.
The Ramones, Radiohead, Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Oh my gosh. Ramones.
REM.
Robert. Oh wow. Robert
Who?
Blake. Robert Blake, the actor.
Mm.
No, he was the star of the show Beretta back in the 70s there, and he was also one of the
Okay.
He was also one of the members of the Little Rascals. Wow.
Yeah, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Did he kill his wife/girlfriend?
That's a good topic. But that's one of the big debates in the circuit. Did he or didn't he? That's almost close to the Michael Jackson molestation situation there. Did he or did he not? But it's kind of that scenario has been played out many times on the E! News Daily, and we still do not know the whole situation there. We still do not know, unfortunately. And sadly, he's now no longer around to tell if he did or did not. Of course, if he did, he's quite sure as hell he ain't going to admit it to everybody else. But now that he's gone with his wife, who he supposedly had murdered, and I guess when they get to Hollywood Heaven, she'll be there waiting and probably smack him around a few times, maybe. We'll never know. We don't know.
Look around, would you ever lay your hand upon a woman?
Never. Never. Never.
Right. Thank you.
The moment you raise your hand to a woman to strike her, you are no longer a man. Bottom line.
Oh, Talking Heads.
There we go there. Songs like, Once in a Lifetime, one of their big ones there. I remember they played that last Friday at the Castle where they had that 80's night there going on.
Same as it ever was.
Yep. The video for that
Same
was
as it ever was.
iconic video. Stop Making Sense, the concert movie and the soundtrack that came with it there.
Girlfriend is Better.
Little Creatures, that album there with that song about meditation called And She Was, I think that was called there.
House is Burning Down, or Burning House, or whatever the hell the name.
Burning Down the House. That was a big one for them. That was big in 1984 there.
U2.
Another big 80's band there. War, the album Boy, October, songs like Gloria, I Will Follow. That's one of the all-time big hits there. Sunday, Bloody Sunday, Two Hearts Beat as
Streets
One.
with No Name.
Yeah, that's when they really made it big with that album, The Joshua Tree. And by the way, they never did give out the location where the front cover of that album or where that tree was actually shot. Because they figured some fool will probably show up in one of their shows saying, "Look, Bono, I got the tree." But you know what? That album, I guess, has recently celebrated an anniversary a couple of years back there. And of course, you cannot forget, I still haven't found what I'm looking for there.
And then you had Van Halen in the 80s.
No,
a lot of the same.
Yeah, Sammy and
Sammy
Dave.
Hagar.
And David Lee Roth there. Roth left in 1985 following that solo EP he put out of covers there, including California Girls and Just a Gigolo. And I guess the story is that he felt like Van Halen was becoming a business instead of a rock band. But that's what happens with bands whenever they get big like they did. And Van Halen was definitely big. I mean, like, God knows how much money they were paid per minute to do the US Festival. I'm afraid in fact, they were paid oodles of money. They had albums like with Roth, like Fair Warning, Women Show the First, Diver Down, 1984. And then with Sammy Hagar, it was 5150, OU 812. Those records are big in 1980 and 80's as well there.
For Using Carnal Knowledge was 90s, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. 1991. And we know the controversy of that album title. That's for sure there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep. Okay.
I think the White Stripes were more than 90s, 2000s, weren't they?
Yeah, well, there's mostly a 2000s band. I'm not too sure. They definitely were formed from Detroit. But basically, they made it big in the 2000s. Definitely for sure. That's the first time I started hearing from them. All right.
My list is kind of exhausted.
Oh wow! So you're kind of like running out of artists on this list here.
Yeah, because this list includes artists from other decades.
All right. Well, let me throw a couple of 80's groups out there.
Yeah, let's go into your. Hold on real quick.
Yeah.
let's give a segment here to the glam metal. I don't like to call them hair bands,
Oh man.
but we need to give our tips to
Yes.
obviously bands like Poison,
Yes.
bands like
Yes.
Cinderella, bands
Motley
like
Crue.
um um what's the one? Winger.
Winger.
Winger. I have to give our dips to Master Pussycat. All those groups. But really, the one. I mean, Rat. You can throw in there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So Poison's the best one out of all those. Brett Michaels.
The
Poison
LA
live.
the
You should
LA
see
metal
Poison
bands.
live. Thank you.
Yeah, the LA metal
The
bands.
LA scene. Yes.
Yeah, the
Sunset
Sunstrip
Strip. Dr.
strip
Brown.
scene. Yes, definitely. That was a big thing in the rock and roll world in the 1980s. There was debauchery. There was a lot of sex. There were a lot of drugs. A lot of crazy shit going on throughout that whole area there around that period. Wasp. We had Motley Crue. We had Van Halen. We had Dokken. All those bands.
Okay.
All those bands there, getting along, hanging out, partying, getting together. Guns N' Roses included on that list as well there, and I guess it's safe to say that Poison may have started the glam stuff there back in '86 when he put out that song "Talk Dirty to Me" or "Cry Tough." Those two were big hits on the radio there.
What about Every Rose Has Its Thorn? Would that be
What's
the
up?
biggest hit? Every
What?
Rose Has Its Horn. You
Yeah,
think that one's the biggest hit?
yeah, that was one of their big hit. Obviously a big hit because it still plays. It gets played
Nothing
on
but a
the
good line.
yeah. Well,
Nothing but a good line.
good line, good time there.
Yeah,
Actually,
nothing but a good line.
that was played a lot at the Ritz and Roseville. That's for sure there. And but yet at the same time, it was also disgruntled. And the reason I say that is because a lot of girls at the time were looking up to Bret Michaels as the hot thing. They want to be with Bret Michaels as a girlfriend or his wife, dad. But yet, they would shun away the normal guys who are working hard to reach the same pinnacle as Poison had. They're trying to go ahead.
There was a show then that was Brett Michaels trying to hook up. Basically, I forgot the name of it. And
The Rock
I
of
saw
Love. That was
I
the
saw
name
it a couple of times, and it was interesting because he had either a girlfriend or a wife, I don't know which, that was on that show with him. And there's these other girls there trying to hook up with him, and it's like, holy crap!
Well,
What
Brett,
the heck is the deal here?
I don't know. It's the same thing with the Flavor of Love. He's trying to hook up with some gal with some oddball name like New York or Brooklyn or what's her name, Ice or something like that. But the thing was, he already had expecting another child with this baby mama at the side there. And here,
Yeah, that
but then
all was
again,
kind of weird.
exactly, and it was kind of. But then again, these women, we consider that Bret Michaels is muscular. He's built. He's a singer. He's a guitar player, a songwriter. He appeared in a couple movies there. He started a movie in the '90s called A Letter from Death Row, in which I guess he played a death row inmate. And he also directed a movie that starred Martin Sheen called No Code of Conduct, which was a police drama. I remember seeing it with my girlfriend at the time on this one movie channel, which she called This. That was the name of the channel there, believe it or not.
Did you ever watch the reality show where NXS was trying to find a new lead singer to replace Michael Hutchins?
Yeah, I saw a couple bits of it there, and sadly, they found their new singer. They put out that one comeback record, and it just tanked miserably. Because here's the thing. Michael Hutchins added that extra edge to In Excess. And when his passing happened, everything just went right down
Was
to...
that a 70s or 80s group?
It was an 80s group, definitely. We got to mention them as well there. It had a lot of hits in the 80s there, like The One Thing, Don't Change, one of my favorites from them. Original Sin, featuring Daryl Hall on backup vocals there.
One
Also,
of my kind.
well, yeah, Need You Tonight.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What,
Sweet
what was the
Sensation.
one where?
Go ahead.
What was the one where they mimicked the Bob Dylan Subterranean Homesick Blues?
That was
With
actually,
the signs. What was
yeah.
the name of that song?
Well, that was actually a combination two songs together, where they have one song slash this song. That was a combination. The other one that they're referring to was a piece they had called "Mediate," and
Yeah.
that followed immediately after the end of "Need You Tonight."
Yeah, that's what I thought. But it was interesting because the video had him basically doing the Dylan thing from Subterranean Homesick Blues
Yeah, absolutely.
with the placards where they had the
Yep.
car names. And I thought that was kind of cool, actually.
It was very interesting, very different take because people just know the song "Need You Tonight" as is, as a single, but often forget about the track that was joined next to it there.
Yeah.
So it was basically two songs joined together into one. The same, kind of like almost the same thing with "Heartbreaker" and "Live and Love and Made," or
Yeah.
yeah. That's how it was often
are
done at that
others.
time. Yes. Mm-hmm.
How about 10,000 Maniacs?
Well,
I found another list.
I wasn't big on their music there, but I know that the singer who would later leave, Natalie Merchant, she would later become a successful solo act in the 1990s there.
Ace with their one hit.
Well,
How
that's
long?
70s. That's 70s. And we know the guy who sang it, Paul Carrack. He was a big figure in the 80s as well. He worked with Nick Lowe. He also worked with Roger Waters later on in the 80s there. He had his own solo career. He had this massive solo hit called Don't Shed a Tear for Me from 86. That was big on the video and radio circuits there.
After the Fire.
The band After the Fire, the Commissar.
Mm-hmm.
Great song. That was the only song we ever heard from him, unfortunately, there. That was, out of the two versions of that song, their version was my favorite compared to Falco's version. And we also cannot forget Falco with his other song, Rock Me Amadeus from 86, a homage to Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart.
Mozart.
Yep, it's absolutely.
Alanis Morissette.
Well, she's 90s. That's for sure.
Well, she started in the 80s.
Yeah, and that show, yeah, it's true.
I mean, a lot of these artists kind of bleed through. Now, is Ambrosia 70s or 80s?
Well, they did release one album in the 80s. I remember it called Rhode Island. Yes, well, that was from 82, and it tanked miserably, and there were no funds.
Which is a shame because this was a great progressive group.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the lead singer,
David Pack.
I think it was David Pack,
Yep.
lost his hearing.
Yeah,
which was a damn shame.
Which was, I know, because he lost part of his hearing in one year, but yet despite that, he was able to overcome that and produce one of their biggest hits, How Much I Feel. In 1980, they had another song, had a couple other hits that year called Biggest Part of Me, and also You're the Only Woman. Those are big that year.
We've talked about debut albums. One of the best debut albums, among the best debut albums, was their debut. That was a good album.
Yeah. I remember you sent me a couple links
very
to
nice.
that. I remember you sent me a
Time
couple
Waits
of...
for No One.
Yep.
Holding On to Yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
That was a great song.
All right, there. Yeah, remember...
Or Leave Me Alone. Man. Yeah, speaking of links, did you like that last couple of sets I sent?
Yes, I did. Absolutely. Like I said, I especially dug the Zombies tune with the Mellotron in there.
Well, that song's about his girlfriend who was in prison.
Yeah.
And got out, and he was asking her all about it. It's an interesting song.
Oh.
I like the Move one, Message from the Country. That one's great too.
Yeah, it is interesting there. Credit to the move there because the Electrolyte Orchestra would emerge out of that group there, believe it or not.
Yep. Yep.
Where did
Let's
Wire
see,
go?
what else did I want to...
Did Wire
He
leave the call?
disappeared.
I noticed, yeah.
I don't know.
No, I'm trying to get
Hey,
Wire,
where?
where'd you go, dude? I guess I need to get occupied with the game or something like that. Well, I'm going to try and get somebody else on the call. I tried getting Ken on
Well,
the call.
it's about time to... I mean, it's 7:25.
Oh yeah, over there, yeah.
Well,
it's about
8:25 where you were.
yeah, absolutely, because I'm back in the Eastern time zone for the past couple of months here. Okay, yeah, it is kind of getting towards that time there. We got to definitely
Well,
continue this for
I
sure.
guess,
There,
yeah, because like I said, I found another list.
nice. Yeah, but definitely
And there's a lot of names I'm sitting there going, how did we miss them?
Yeah.
You know, so
We also got to throw out this one particular song that I was a fan of. Song's called "Big Man Restless" by a project called Kissing the Pink.
Mm.
There you are, Wire. It was a good song.
he
Definitely
hid
look it
from
up.
us.
Yeah, look it up, guys. It is a pretty damn good song. I always enjoyed the atmosphere of that song whenever I listened to it. It makes me whenever I would hear that song, it would remind me of when me, my ma, my sister, and myself were driving somewhere to some thing going on in Detroit there, and I would look out on the bridge, see all the snow falling down on the freeway there, whether it was 75, M10, or whichever it was there. But it was just, when I hear that song, it takes me to that image. That's what it does.
A good piece of music will evoke memories.
Absolutely.
I mean, you'll think about, oh, I heard that song when I was doing whatever. Was it? Oh,
yeah.
Is there any way you can get Wire some of those links to some of those songs I sent you?
Yes.
You know what? I should do that. Definitely for sure there. I will definitely do
I'd like
that.
for him to hear some of them.
Yeah,
Thank you.
definitely.
Because I think you'll find them interesting.
And also try. Don't feel. You can also send them through a Skype as well. There, definitely.
Yeah, but there's so many different groups to send them to.
Right there. Right there. So I guess this concludes tonight's episode into the 1980s there. Yeah, and I like the idea that YR suggested. Wednesday do Music Maniacs and Thursday do Movie Maniacs or Movie Madness, as we used to call it back then.
Well, it gives us kind of a break, and maybe we can even do some of the old television shows just
Absolutely, yes, definitely. We got to do so, man. Definitely for shizzle. All right there. Definitely. We'll definitely look into some films, some movies, good, bad, and downright cheesy for definitely to talk about there. In the meantime...
Wire, I'm not kidding. You need to see Plan 9 from Outer Space and say to yourself, Ed Wood was the worst director in the world.
Absolutely. Oh, dude. Oh, no. The things in
when
that
you listen
movie...
to some of the dialogue and some of the things that happen, you say to yourself, what idiot made this movie?
Believe me, when you watch the props that they use in some of the scenes there, like they're using actual wooden chairs as chairs for the spaceship that the aliens are supposedly flying.
And they have two pie plates together on strings, pulling them across, that kind of thing. Oh, you got to see it.
Oh God!
You'll get a thrill out of watching it, trying to point out to yourself, this is stupid. Yeah, this is stupid too. Holy cow, that's even stupider than the last thing. And Bela Lugosi.
Yep. Yeah, he was in that
died
movie.
During the middle of the movie.
Yeah.
And to replace him, they got the co-star's chiropractor, who was about a foot taller than Bela Lugosi, and always had that cape over his face so you couldn't see who it was, but you're supposed to believe
that was him.
Bela Lugosi.
Yeah.
And you'll catch on right away going, that's not Bela Lugosi.
Yep. Okay.
But yeah, and like I said, some of the dialogue in it, it starts off with Chriswell, I forget his first name, talking about these are events that are happening in the future. And when you hear what he says and how he says it, you're going, that doesn't make any damn sense.
Oh, no.
I mean, it's unreal. Or you'll enjoy the movie.
You'll
Trust me.
enjoy it. Believe me. Bring your laughing cap with you when you watch this flick there.
Yeah, don't watch it for seriousness. You ain't going to get
There
it.
ain't no serious in any of those movies, let alone Glenn or Glenda. Another movie
You
that
people
Ed
of
Wood
Earth are
did.
stupid.
Yes.
You people of Earth are stupid. What? Okay.
Stupid, stupid, stupid. And by the way, I said there was another movie that Ed Wood did that kind of like pioneered the transvestite thing, the cross-dressing thing called
Glenda,
Glenn
yeah.
or Glenda. That's a trip to check out just as well there. All right.
Yeah, he did a lot of movies that were like, oh, man.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy got paid for this stuff?
If he actually got paid.
Got it.
Yep. All right. So that concludes tonight's episode of Music Maniacs. For YR, Arknolia, and myself, and hopefully we'll get Keith back on the call next week for sure. Hopefully. All right, so it's going to be music on Wednesdays and movies on Thursdays, I guess, from here on.
For a little while anyway. Let's see how it goes.
I'd say I'm for it. Let's do it there. We need to dive back into the other stuff. That's for shizzle, definitely. All right, so for these two guys and myself, you enjoy the rest of your Thursday evening, and we'll see you cats later. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.